I want to tell you a little about my story, and I think it parallels. I want to show you what I've seen growing up here. I was actually pleased to see very few hands go up when they said, how many people have lived there their whole life? I was one of those hands, but very few. And I think that's what makes, hopefully, what I'm going to say to you very special. My grandfather came here in 1902, Giovanni Pignatelli. All he wanted was a better life. Landed to Ellis Island, got vetted, got processed very quickly. I think that was before the internet, and he still found a way to do it. He moved up to the Berkshires because of the grand estates that were being built here in the Berkshires, the famous Gilded Age. And for 55 years, my grandfather worked as a greenhouse man at Bellefontaine, which is now Canyon Ranch. The most money he ever made in his life was $90 a month. But yet, he raised 8 children, owned 3 homes, and wanted a better life for his children. When he died at the age of 89, I was probably just 12 years old, I looked back and I said, I don't ever recall my grandfather, speaking a word of English. But he knew everything that was going on. And he wanted a better life for his children. And every one of those 8 children went on to be successful people. My father, who's now 92, is the baby of that family. My aunt, who passed away, was the oldest of the family. Everybody else had passed away. My aunt passed away at 101 just a couple of years ago. And I was with her the night she passed away, and it was the most special moment of my life because it was a peaceful passing. But while we were talking there, I said, Aunt Josephine, what's your secret to long life? Her first response was, she says she never got married. And I said, I'm in trouble on that front. Is there anything else? And she says, do things for others. Do things for others. And it reaffirmed my belief of public service. All of us speaking here today are servants. We're here to try to make life better for other people. Now, I may be the only elected official of this panel. We're all public servants. And I learned that at a very early age. At the age of 11, I went to work for my father as an electrician, an apprentice electrician working summers. He paid me 50 cents an hour, which is a lot of money. I was the richest kid in 6th grade, making $20 a week. But I saw firsthand my dad as a local official, as a Lenox Selectman and a Berkshire County Commissioner, the joy that he got with being in a position to help people. Now, I never dreamed I'd be where I am today, but I learned early on, and in my family, the middle of 5 children, my parents not only encouraged us to give back to our community, they expected us to give back to our community. Let's make it better for the next generation. And that's what I believed in. My very first job out of high school, besides working for my father, I was appointed a special policeman in the town of Lenox. My father told the special policeman at that time that you are the ambassadors for the town of Lenox. There are people that will be coming to the Berkshires and coming to Lenox and going to Tanglewood that may have never been here before. And you may be the first person they see to ask for help, ask for directions, or whatever. How you treat them is going to set the table and set the tone for their experience here in the Berkshires. And I took that very seriously. Let me go back a couple of years, because I've had a blessed life. At the age of 25, and it's the greatest thing that ever happened to me, is I lost my first election. I'm not sure how many politicians would admit they lost an election, and I'm not sure how many more would tell you that it was the greatest thing that ever happened to them. But I ran for public office against my father's best intentions, and I said, I can do this, and I got beat. I wasn't discouraged, though, because I felt I had something to contribute to my community. And 2 years later, I came back, and I like to say I'm 14-1. That's a pretty good record. But when my predecessor as state representative decided to retire after 20 years of service, I left a very good job at a local bank, making more money than I'm making now as a state legislator, because I felt I could give something back to my community once again. And a funny thing happened on the way to Election Day. I won by 106 votes. I love going into schools and I tell people, young people, get involved, you can make a difference. Society is so discouraged with politics and politicians that they don't think they can make a difference. But every vote matters, every vote counts. When I hear people, I was at a wedding last night for my cousin, they're talking about people sitting out this presidential election. How embarrassing is that? Countries around the world would lined up for hours on end, blocks and blocks and miles, just to cast a vote that we've taken for granted. I'm living proof that you can't take it for granted. Now, very few people know who I beat. I do. And the person I beat does. Because those people showed up and voted for me. So what are we doing in life? What are we doing in politics? Where have we been? When I was growing up here in the Berkshires, over 3,000 people worked at Sprague Electric in North Adams. 10 or 12,000 people worked at General Electric in Pittsfield. The paper mills alone in Lee, Massachusetts, employed over 4,000 people. Rising Mill in Great Barrington, 150 to 200 people. Mill River in New Marlborough is called Mill River because there was once 11 paper mills in Mill River. Sprague Electric is gone. And when that mill shut down, nearly 50% of the employees there did not even have a high school diploma. The paper mills of Lee are long gone, except for one, Onyx Paper, employing 150 people. Rising Mill is gone. Mill River's mills are gone. General Electric's is gone. What are we doing to reinvent ourselves, make life better for the next generation? That's what I believe we, everybody in this room, your elected officials, your public servants, have an opportunity and an obligation to make things better. When I was younger, 165,000 people lived in the Berkshires. Today, 127,000 people live in the Berkshires. In 1968 to 1972, we were graduating about 4,000 kids a year in our local high schools. Last year, we graduated about 1,000. These are real numbers, but we can't be afraid of it. We need to embrace it. There's a lot of people that talk about our declining population, our aging demographics. Okay, what are we doing about it? The Berkshires were built on the backs of manufacturing for over 200 years. The manufacturing is not here. But what are the career opportunities of today and tomorrow? How about broadband technology? What a novel concept. When Bill Gates said that this would be the decade of velocity because the technology was changing so quickly, we need to make those kind of investments. Sadly, Bill Gates said that in 2000. For anybody who lives here in New Marlborough or Monterey or Sandusfield, any of the Egremont, Alford, the hill towns, we still have no internet access. And it's 2016. That's what we need to be doing. And we're starting to do it. We've already lost the first decade of the 2000s. Can we really afford to miss the second decade of the 2000s? When we see our population declining, we're seeing more younger and younger people leaving the area. It's an economic development opportunity. It's an educational disconnect. The access to the outside world has to be as easy and as quick as you and I are communicating here today. Whether it's California or emerging countries around the world, it's got to be quick. High-speed internet access, I think, is going to be our single biggest economic investment we're going to make for this generation. But we need to do it now. We need to do it 10 years ago, but we didn't do it. Now, I talked about the 1,000 kids that have graduated in our public schools, but we still have 12 high schools. We still have 14 school superintendents. We're graduating classes of less than 40 kids. Are we really giving them a good educational opportunity? Are we providing them with the diversity necessary to live in this crazy world that we have today? I question that. So while my father in 1971, and I tagged along with him when he ran for county commissioner, we're at a candidates forum up in North Adams. And he said, think about it, folks. 155, 160,000 people. We have 32 police chiefs, 32 fire chiefs, 32 DPW chiefs. If we don't start thinking about sharing services, regionalizing or sub-regionalizing services, we're never going to be successful. A guy came up to my dad at the end of that forum. He said, Johnny, he says, I'm going to support you because your friend Joe Campidelli says you're a good guy. But with your platform, you'll never get elected. Well, my dad did get elected. And as Jack knows, he had some good success for 20 years, having communities start talking about it. Here we are today, and I told you about the employment and our population back then. I told you about the employment and the population here today. If we can't get our 32 little fiefdoms called towns to start communicating with our neighbors, to start sharing some services, to be more efficient, saving taxpayer dollars, I think we're going to continue to slide. I see my friend Bob Mason, the town administrator in Lee. He's been a great leader in this effort. He knows that our small towns are not sustainable financially the way we're going. Our populations are shrinking. The town I grew up with in Lenox is smaller today than it was when I was younger. There's 1,000 people less living in Lenox today than just 10 years ago. How do we reverse that? How do we become affordable, efficient, saving taxpayer dollars? Tell me why we need 14 superintendents. Tell me why we need 32 police chiefs. Tell me why we need 8 911 dispatch centers. The state of Texas has 1. The state of California has 4. Berkshire County, 127,000 people, we have 8. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Those are the challenges we face. Those are the challenges I'm not afraid to embrace. As the dean of the delegation and Jack's nephew is leaving, Ben Downey, we all love Ben, it's a huge void. It's a huge void in the Berkshires. But you know what? I've never been one of those guys that thinks I'm irreplaceable. In the next election, we'll have a new state senator. Won't be Ben Downing, but he or she better come to this state house with the same passion and work ethic and vision that Senator Ben Downing had for the last 10 years. And the teamwork approach that what's good in the Southern Berkshires is going to help North County. What's good in Pittsfield is going to help Great Barrington. What happens in Lee is going to benefit Lanesboro. That's where we got to be. And if we're not there, if we're not ready to tackle those issues, we're going to still see these numbers decline. I wake up every day and I try to live by a quote that was given to me by a former Speaker of the House a long time ago, Tom McGee, who battled alcoholism. And he fought hard to get the McGee-Hillcrest unit in Pittsfield established, where they actually named it after him. And when that funding was cut in the legislature, a delegation, not a political delegation, of hospital and business leaders went down to see this then Speaker of the House, Tom McGee, and said, our funding got cut. He called up the Department of Public Health, and he was kind of a rough, gruff guy. He said, look it, I was a drunk, I needed help, the people in the Berkshires need help as well. And that funding was restored. And that McGee unit is named in his honor. And every year we had a golf tournament at Cranwell in his honor, raising money for that unit. And when I first got elected, he told me, he says, I try to live my life with one creed. When I put my head down at night, knowing that I've helped even just one person, I've had a good day. And he put his hand on mine and he says, Smitty, I hope you have a lot of good days. Imagine what world we would live in today if each and every one of us went home tonight, went to bed, and said, you know what? I had a good day. Life would be a lot better. Thank you so much.